Hey, what's going on YouTube? So today I got a special video for all of you. Today I'm going to be doing my top 10 quarterbacks in fantasy for 2020. Number 10, we got Tom Brady. So he recently joined the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this offseason. He's joining probably the best wide receiver duo in the NFL with Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. Chris Godwin had an amazing year last year, like a top 5 receiver in the NFL. They added tight end Rob Gronkowski, Tom Brady's old friend for the Patriots. And they also added a first-round pick from Iowa, Tristan Wirfs, who was one of the best offensive tackles in this draft. So Tom Brady's going to be joining Bruce Arians and Clyde Christensen. Clyde Christensen recently worked with Peyton Manning on the Colts, and you know how much success Peyton Manning had on the Colts. He is also going to work with Bruce Arians, who coached Carson Palmer in Arizona. He had a lot of success there too. The division looks like it's going to be also a lot tougher with a lot of high-scoring games. You got the Saints, you got the Panthers, and the Falcons. You know, the Falcons, their defense is really weak. You got the Panthers, their defense is also really weak. They have their entire defense is full of rookies, pretty much. And then also the Saints, they have a good overall team, but I would definitely expect a lot of these games to be really high scoring. The last 6 games for the Bucks are also either at home or in a dome. They're playing the Lions, and they're playing the Falcons away on both dome games, which Brady excels in dome games. Also, they're at home, so it's pretty much like the NFL set the Bucks for success towards the end of the season. Tom Brady will be turning 43 by the time the season starts, which is a little bit worrisome. So a lot of people are saying, like, is age finally going to show in Brady's play? How much of a deep ball does he have? He's still going to be pretty accurate, but how much of a deep ball does he have is one of the main questions. So I have Tom Brady at number 10 for my rankings. Number 9, I got Matthew Stafford. So a lot of people had Drew Brees in their top 10. I personally like Matthew Stafford over Drew Brees this year. Stafford's finally be healthy again. He had back surgery this past offseason, and he's been saying like he's pretty much 100%. He missed a lot of games in 2019. He also played injured in 2018. He did start all 16 games in 2018, but he said he played with fractured bones in his back in 2018. I mean, that's terrible. They have a good receiving core. Obviously, they got wide receiver Kenny Golladay, who's like Calvin Johnson Jr. They got Marvin Jones Jr. They also have T.J. Hawkinson. They also added second-round pick DeAndre Swift, who's a really good pass-catching back. He's a great running back. Most people had him as their number 1 running back coming out of this draft. The Lions also added a few free agent pieces. They added offensive lineman Halapuli Vatai from the Eagles. They gave him a pretty nice contract. They also drafted third-round pick Jonah Jackson, offensive guard from Ohio State. So they're building up that O-line just to make sure that Stafford's healthy. He's secure back there. Yeah, so from 2011 to 2018, Stafford didn't miss a single game. He started all 16 games. He had a lot of success. He's one of the top quarterbacks in the league, and I expect him to have a major bounce back this upcoming year. Number 8, we got Matt Ryan. So he's one of the most consistent quarterbacks in the league. Matt Ryan, he's missed 3 games in 12 seasons. His last 9 seasons, he's thrown for over 4,000 yards every year, 20-plus passing touchdowns also in those seasons. He's had a lot of seasons where he's had like 35 touchdowns, 37 touchdowns. So he's a great quarterback. Personally, one of my favorite stacks is to pair him with Calvin Ridley. You can pair him in Julio Jones, but you're going to have to pick Julio Jones really early. But I love picking Calvin Ridley in like the 4th or 5th round, and then getting Matt Ryan in like the 9th round, 10th round, because I know there's going to be a lot of high-scoring games because the Falcons' defense is really weak. They're pretty much going to just rely on their offense. The division is tough. There's going to be a lot of high-scoring games, as I said, that Tom Brady competing with Matt Ryan, competing with Drew Brees and Teddy Bridgewater. A lot of high-scoring games. They did lose tight end Austin Hooper, but they also added a 2018 first-round pick from the Ravens, Hayden Hurst. Hayden Hurst didn't really have much success in Baltimore, but I see him definitely bouncing back with the Falcons being the number 1 tight end. The offensive line is also full of first-round picks, so I definitely see Matt Ryan bouncing back, having a major year this upcoming season. So number 7, I have Shaun Watson. He finished 4th in quarterback fantasy points last year. The Texans did trade away DeAndre Hopkins, which is going to hurt Watson's stats a bit. I think in 2020, the offense is definitely going to rely a lot more on Shaun Watson, though. They're going to use his legs a lot more. They did add wide receiver Brandon Cooks, who's been really consistent. He's had 1,000 yards receiving in every single one of his seasons. They also added Randall Cobb, who's probably going to be a slot receiver for the Texans. And they also got David Johnson, who's running back. David Johnson was good last year in the beginning of the season, but he got hurt, and then after, when he came back from his injury, he just wasn't the same player. I did hear that good things about him, though. His durability looks good. He's looking healthy now, so he passed the physical. Watson did have 26 touchdowns in 2018 and 2019, so he's been pretty consistent there. He did rush for over five touchdowns in his last two seasons as well. So he's a dual threat quarterback. You always want that in fantasy. The Texans do have one of the tougher schedules for 2020, which is a bit worrisome. Their offensive line still isn't that great. They do have Laramie Tunsil left tackle. They paid him a lot of money. Watson, I don't know. The main thing is just they lost DeAndre Hopkins. That's why I have him lower in my ranks at number 7. So he's not top 5 for me. Number 6, we got Josh Allen. He finished 5th in QB fantasy points last year. And now they added wide receiver Stephon Diggs, who's one of the top receivers in the league. Deep threat. So that pairing is going to be great. Josh Allen is one of my favorite quarterbacks to watch. Just the way he plays the game. He's a dual threat quarterback. Runs the ball a lot, which is a little bit worrisome sometimes because there are definitely some injury concerns for him because the way that he plays the game, he runs the ball a little wild. He takes some big hits. So the first half of the schedule is one of the easiest. I do see him having major success in the beginning half of the season. Later half, he might struggle a little bit, but I still see him doing well, especially as he plays more with Stephon Diggs. They get a chemistry going, he'll do a lot better. Number 5, we got Russell Wilson. So he finished 3rd in QB fantasy points last year. He's one of the most consistent quarterbacks in the league, as you can see on the bottom right corner. Seahawks added tight end Greg Olsen to the receiving core. He's an older tight end, but they still do have nice options. A tight end with Jacob Hollister and Will Dissly. You also got DK Metcalf at receiver and Tyler Lockett. So the offense coordinator for the Seahawks, Schottenheimer, he likes to run the ball a lot. If it was a different offense coordinator who liked to pass the ball more, I definitely see Russell Wilson being like a top 3 quarterback in fantasy. But with Schottenheimer, he loves to run the ball, so that kind of hurts Russell Wilson's upside. But I've seen the schedule, and the schedule does seem pretty tough, so I could see definitely Wilson having a lot more pass attempts this season. Number 4, we got Dak Prescott. The Cowboys led the NFL in yards per game in 2019. He finished 2nd in QB fantasy points last year behind the marvelous Lamar Jackson. Dak Prescott does play with one of the best offensive lines in the league. They did lose center Travis Frederick, but they replaced him with Joe Looney, and they also drafted Tyler Biadasz as a center from Wisconsin. He was a 5th-round pick, so he probably won't start right away, but he'll make his way probably to being a starter eventually. They also added first-rounder wide receiver CeeDee Lamb, who was a monster receiver at Oklahoma. Got a lot of comparisons to DeAndre Hopkins. He's probably going to be the 3rd receiver behind Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup. New coach Mike McCarthy should also help Dak improve. He obviously worked in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers. He had a lot of success there. So I definitely see him having a better season, maybe a major breakout season, especially with the type of offense that they build up with Amari Cooper. You got Michael Gallup. You got CeeDee Lamb. You also have a breakout candidate, Blake Jarwin, who they paid a lot of money to. There's definitely a lot of receiving options on that team. They also have stud running back Ezekiel Elliott, who's always getting fed. He's one of the top running backs in the league. So, I see a lot of red zone opportunities, a lot of touchdowns in store for Dak Prescott. The defense in the division are really weak. You got the Redskins, who their defense, their pass rush is pretty good, but their cornerbacks are really weak. They lost, obviously, Quentin Dunbar. They got rid of Josh Norman. So the secondary is pretty weak still. Then you got the Giants defense, which is also pretty weak. They didn't really add many players. I know they added James Bradbury, but I still see that defense struggling. And then you got the Eagles, who added Darius Slay, but that defense is still not, I don't think, that great. There has been some worry about Dak Prescott not signing yet. He didn't sign the franchise tender yet, which is a bit worrisome for me. If he holds out or something, which would be really weird because it's like $30 million he can get for next year, but he wants a big contract extension, so we'll see what happens. Number 3, we got Kyler Murray. He finishes 7th in quarterback fantasy points last year, and now they added wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins, top 5 receiver in the league, and they added offensive tackle Joshua Jones, who was like a first-round talent, but he went in like the 3rd round. So yeah, that was kind of a steal. In Kyler Murray's rookie season, he passed for over 3,500 yards and 20 touchdowns. He also rushed for over 500 yards and 4 touchdowns. They're dual threat quarterback. You want dual threat quarterbacks in fantasy. Yeah, so typically for rookie quarterbacks, we don't see that great of years. But then the second year, we'll see a major bounce back year. Like Lamar Jackson, you saw an amazing year. He had Shaun Watson. He had a better year. And also Mitchell Trubisky, who was not that great of a quarterback. But in his second season, he actually had he had a pretty good season. He was a Pro Bowler too. The offensive line isn't that great, but I see Cliff Kingsbury finding ways for Kyler Murray to have success. Number 2, we got Lamar Jackson, marvelous Lamar Jackson. He had one of the greatest fantasy seasons you'll ever see. He scored 415 fantasy points as a quarterback. The Ravens do have actually the easiest schedule for the 2020 season. Lamar did have 36 passing touchdowns last season, and he rushed for over 1,200 yards and 7 rushing touchdowns. I do expect some regression because I don't think it's really sustainable. As you can see, his player prop on FanDuel Sportsbooks is over 920 yards. So they're definitely expecting him to not rush for that many yards, like 1,200 yards again. So I could see him rushing for another 1,000 yards. There's also injury concerns with the way that he plays. I mean, he's a dual-threat quarterback, but he runs a lot, and he doesn't really take some hits. He finds ways to not get hit, which is really impressive. But you never know. I mean, one hit, he'd be out for the year, so it's a little bit worrisome. The Ravens did add second-round pick J.K. Dobbins from Ohio State. I expect him to take a bit of the workload, also get some red zone carries, catch some pass from the backfield. So he's probably going to take some of Lamar Jackson's rushing touchdowns. The Ravens also did lose offensive guard Marshall Yanda, which is a little bit worrisome too. But I think the Ravens will definitely still find a way to have success. Number 1, we got Patrick Mahomes. Hands down, best quarterback in the league. I see him being the best quarterback of all time in the future. His first season starting in the NFL, he sat out that 1 year. His first season, which was in 2018, he had 50 passing touchdowns, which is just incredible. And he finished with 417 fantasy points. He has an amazing receiving core. He has wide receiver Tyreek Hill, wide receiver Mecole Hardman. You got Sammy Watkins. You got DeMarcus Robinson, that's just pure speed. Then you also got tight end Travis Kelce, who's the best tight end in the league. They also added running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire out of LSU. That was actually their first-round pick. With the 32nd pick, they picked him. And so I see Clyde Edwards-Helaire having a pretty big role. He's a really good pass-catching back. So he could take some of the touchdowns away from Patrick Mahomes, but he could also have a lot of receiving touchdowns from Mahomes. Mahomes did miss 2 games last year due to injuries. I believe he had a dislocated knee, but he still had 26 touchdowns, and he won the Super Bowl. I definitely see him having another great year. I could see definitely in the range of outcomes he could have 40 touchdowns. His player prop right now is like 35.5 touchdowns. I'd probably hit the over on that just because he's such a stud. The division has gotten tougher. The Chargers' defense is a lot better. The Broncos also got better on offense, and the Raiders also improved a bit. So I could also see higher scoring games within that division. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. Make sure you like and subscribe. Also comment down below if you like this content. I'm going to be having more videos of my top 10 in running backs, top 10 receivers, top 10 tight ends, top 10 defenses, kickers, and all that. Thank you guys.